I can be more in depth or brief, you just give me the cue and I'll look to you.
Okay.
He woke up over the weekend talking about hoping to be sledding. I'm afraid he's not going to get his wish this time, but we're good. Well,
I'd like to begin maybe this week and after by the time we get
Chris Green, my staff, I'll have him reach out to the me and we'll get something scheduled. It'd be great.
know.
And we'll work with Patrick if there's any data or anything we want, we can.
Good, everything's working. Yeah, I think so. You got your presentation loaded?
Yeah, on the flash drive there. Or I can help her. Do you think there's a transfer?
Yeah, I think
She
yeah.
can probably drive it.
And then I made sure everybody has copies that you got it. So we're good.
Okay.
Well, I'll do the high level.
Yeah, I'd be happy
And
to.
then I'm going to train you some questions
Yeah,
there
yeah.
too, but
Just go down the line and drop them. And then the other
in
thing
2010, the Obama administration eliminated that. And so we had almost $1 billion worth of funds in the schools every year that really subsidized the cost of the rest of our operations.
the staff jobs.
But at that time, we had employees that were only working on those programs, and so they were under the authority. Everything was state. And so really, and even the program name change from Hope Administration to Commission reflects that we don't have other operations down there, so it's just our state program.
Hey man, good to see you too.
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right.
That's my chairman.
He can't have it.
I know. That's good morning. Appreciate the attendance on this wintry day, and for the first meeting and session of the Higher Education Appropriations Committee. With that, I'm going to ask the Dean of the House if he'll open us up invocation.
Shall we pray? This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your many blessings. We ask that you watch over us, keep us within your hands, and make us make the right decisions that are pleasing in your sight. Now bless us all. Bless those who have traveled. Bless them with trace travel back home. In these words we pray and ask you for forgiveness, and thank you for all the blessings that you bestowed upon us. In your words we say, amen.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, welcome to all of the returning members and new members of the Appropriations Committee. Y'all, I appreciate all of the help and the work that y'all have done and that we will do. Y'all bear with me as I get familiar with my new role. Very excited about this, and I'm very excited about working with all of the institutions that are involved in the higher education in Georgia. Over the years, I think the success of Georgia, a lot of that success has been because of our partners in higher education. We have excelled. We've met the needs of not only the citizens of Georgia, making sure that they're prepared to go out in the workforce, but also the institutions that are working together with industry and making sure that we're meeting the needs of a growing Georgia. So again, great teamwork, and I look forward to working in this role in the future. This is our first hearing as far as looking at some of the presentations that we have, and then obviously the amended budgets coming out. We will plan to have one more meeting tomorrow, and I guess is the schedule. I'm not sure the exact schedule with 2 to 5, as needed. But with that, we have several presentations today, and to go over a little bit of what's going on in these universities. The first one is going to be our University System of Georgia and Chancellor Wrigley. Welcome, and appreciate you coming. And I don't know if you welcome seat or what. I don't know if you got a presentation. All right, let me make sure I've got your mic on, Chancellor. Table. There we go.
We're good to go.
Go ahead, Chancellor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thought I would sit here. Tracy Cook will run the slides, and we'll run through those quickly, and then Tracy will speak. I think we've got a couple items in the amended budget, but we look forward to working with you in your role. You're very familiar with our institutions and the system, as I think every member of this committee is very familiar with the university system, and we appreciate your support through the years. You're absolutely right. Your support has made a big difference in the quality of the university system, and we don't take that for granted, and we very much appreciate the support of this committee and the House and the Senate, and certainly the governor as well. So with that, I think most of you have seen these slides. I'll run through them pretty quickly, but I wanted to just give another overview of who we are. As you know, we have 26 institutions. We're a single governing board, which is somewhat unusual in the country. So the Board of Regents does oversee all of our research institutions, comprehensive state universities, and the state colleges. Some years ago, we were at 35, and through consolidations, we have reduced that number of institutions to 26. Fall headcount enrollment was over 328,000. According to University of Georgia Economic Impact, you see the number, 16.8 billion, and impact of jobs over 160,000. So we talk a lot and focus on our economic competitiveness, and we think everything we do should be geared toward making sure that our state is competitive economically. You've seen this data coming out of the Great Recession. There was something like 11.6 million jobs created. 99% of them went to people with education beyond high school, emphasizing why what we do and what TCSG does and the private institutions is very important to getting our workforce prepared to participate in that economy. 70% of those jobs went to folks with a bachelor's degree, indicating just how complicated the workforce is becoming. In the next decade, something like 2/3 of the jobs are going to require education beyond high school. We are focused on this, and I want that committee to know that. We have established 3 goals: to be affordable, to be efficient, and to raise attainment levels by graduating more students with a degree or a credential of some kind. We've got initiatives underway in each of these areas. I've spoken to you before about what we're trying to do in the area of affordability. We are self-conscious about tuition. We've not raised it in 2 of the last 3 years. Our average increase the last 5 years is 1.8%. That's something we will continue to make sure we try to hold the line on. We do need some revenue to help keep the quality up in our institutions, and which is why we very much appreciate the state support, and the tuition and fees help to support that as well. I've talked to you before about the textbook initiative we began several years ago. Last year, this committee held a hearing on that, which was very helpful, and we appreciated that. It's an effort we began some years ago to convert all of our core courses are online. The textbooks are free, and we're also converting textbooks for upper-level courses and other courses to online materials. Just one example, Georgia Southern, a calculus textbook is $168, and we have converted that to an online text, and 3,500 students take that class a year, so that's close to $600,000 in savings from that initiative. Annually now, we think we're saving students around $19 million because of the textbook initiative, and it's a high priority for us, and we're going to continue to focus on that, because the cost of a textbook sometimes can get in the way of a student continuing in a program. An initiative we've got underway to improve students' understanding of when they borrow money is very important. We're going to be specific to make sure students understand they don't need to borrow more than they need, and that when they do borrow, what the payment will be when they leave school, and if they add to that borrowing, how much the payment will increase. We've got some limitations on what we can do because of federal regulations, but the U.S. Department of Education is really modernizing their efforts in that area, and we're working with them, and so we feel good about this area. The whole point is to make sure that students know more and they borrow less. So that's what we're
Sort of
doing.
like the public the disclosures on all the loans that we all take out. The disclosures as to payment and amount.
Right, exactly right. In the area of efficiency, I've mentioned before about our comprehensive administrative review, which we began a couple of years ago. All of our institutions are participating. The University System Office is participating. It's the first time we've ever conducted a system-wide look at our how we're organized, span of control, our internal processes, and we feel like it is going well. All of the internal reports will be due, by June 30th. University of West Georgia and the System Office went first. Between us, we've eliminated about 40 jobs, and in the System Office, we actually had a reduction in force, which affected 15 people. It's never pleasant to do, but we took the report very seriously and trying to make sure we're organized in the most modern and efficient way that we can be. You're aware of the consolidations, reducing our number of institutions from 35 to 26. The whole point of doing that was to serve students better. It wasn't just to save money, but it was to serve students better. We feel like we're accomplishing that in a number of instances where we didn't offer 4-year degrees or didn't offer many 4-year degrees. We were able to increase the number of 4-year degrees that we've offered. A couple of external independent looks at the efforts, the outcomes of consolidation indicate that student success has improved. It's still a little early because we just started these in 2012. But that's been our primary focus, is to improve student outcomes. Online learning is something that has grown dramatically in the last 7 or 8 years. The number of courses has gone up, both undergrad and graduate classes. We have a number now of degrees that are online only, so that students can complete a class, complete a course, and sometimes complete a degree online. Most students take a blended set of courses. They may take an online and a traditional in-class, but I think we'll continue to see that increase. In the area of raising attainment levels, one of the things we wanted to do was understand the characteristics of a successful student. And we've done surveys, we looked at our data. You see some of these points here. Nationwide, half of the students who begin college and they've not declared a major, they drop out before they declare a major. So that's an area we want to focus on and work on. In Georgia, students who pass English and math in the first year are 10 times more likely to get a degree if they pass English and math in that first year. And students who take more credit hours in the first year have a much greater likelihood of completing a degree, which is a little counterintuitive from what a lot of times even we've advised students. But the data show that students who take a heavier course load earlier in their college career are more likely to finish. So we've got several initiatives underway to try to address these areas and others. One is this fall, students, if they don't pick a major, they have to pick a focus area. They may know they want to study business, but they may not sure their major, but business would be a focus area for them. They'll take 9 hours in those areas that first year. Data also shows students who early on figure out their purpose, that why they're in college and why they're taking a class, again, they're more likely to succeed. So we're going to require them to pick a focus area. We've changed the way we do remedial education, changed the model on that. We're seeing pass rates increase significantly. You can see the data there, particularly in math, which sometimes is a struggle for a lot of students. We've seen increases in the math rates for remedial education. Other things we're doing, encouraging students, as I said, take more hours, 15 to finish. We're providing them guided pathways when they enroll at orientation. This is how you finish in 4 years, to make sure they understand what it will take, what they have to take, which semester in order to finish in those 4 years. So those are some initiatives in all three of our areas of our goal areas. A couple things about specifically we're doing in workforce. We've talked about the Nexus degree. The board approved it about a year ago. It's the first new degree in the country, and it's the first new degree since 1898, as near as we can tell. It's a workforce-oriented degree. The core is you still take the core, but then the specific courses, 18 hours, are in a very precise curriculum that we actually develop with the industry. And 6 hours has to be in an internship or experiential learning. A couple of examples, Albany State has developed classes in blockchain technology to help work with the Marine Corps base there. We've got other institutions looking to have Nexus degrees approved. Columbus State has had one approved in film. And a number of our institutions have also, we're encouraging them to align their curriculum with the regional workforce needs. Dalton State has started a degree to work with the flooring industry. Of course, Augusta is doing a lot of work with cyber. So we're really emphasizing the need for our institutions to align the curriculum with the workforce, and we're driving more of that out of the system office than we ever have before. A couple of results points. Our enrollment has grown 2% in the last 7 or 8 years, but the number of degrees is up 21%. We think that is a result of a lot of these initiatives that we have underway to encourage students toward success. The things like the guided pathways, the remedial changes that we made, encouraging them to take more hours. So we feel good about that, and we want to continue to see that improve. On the spending side, which we're all interested in and make a priority, the amount of money we spend to produce a degree has actually declined by 6.5% since fiscal 08 when you adjust for inflation. And I think that's all of us working together to keep costs down and being a lot more self-conscious about that than we've been before. A couple other things that we're paying attention to, and I think I've shown you this before. Birth rates in the country have been declining. The result is 18 years later, there are fewer high school graduates. You can see the numbers for the state of Georgia, the rapid increase from the mid-90s to about 2014 or 2015, and then the flattening out of the line, and even a decline maybe after 2025. Again, this is all due to the decline in birth rates. Last year, I think there was the lowest number of births in the United States since 1987. It's happening all over the country. Some parts of the country are looking at dramatic declines in the number of high school graduates. The Northeast, the upper Midwest. I would not be surprised if the University of Wisconsin doesn't start to try to recruit in the Atlanta area and some of the New York schools, because the competition for students is growing already and is going to continue to grow. I think some of you have seen this map. On the left, it maps the change in where 15 to 24-year-olds live in our state between 2000 and 2010. The map on the right, the change between 2010 and 2020. The green colors and the lighter colors indicate growth. The darker colors indicate decline. And the bottom line is we've got some parts of our state where the number of 15 to 24-year-olds may decline as much as 20 or 25 or 30%. This is the kind of data we look at, where our institutions are and what impact it has on our ability to meet those workforce needs. I wanted to mention this. This is the funding from the state funds per full-time equivalent student. It's adjusted for the CPI. I think that begins in fiscal 2000 up until the current fiscal year. It has declined during that period of time. You can see where the declines come during periods of economic recession, and that's what happens. We realize that, and I'm not complaining about that. It is a reality, and it's something that we've tried to deal with through some of these initiatives that I've talked about, trying to be more cost conscious, try to be more aware of how we can save students money. But this is a piece of the equation about what it costs to fund college and pay for college, and it does have some impact on the tuition side. But we don't, I guess I said before, we don't take your support for granted, and we do appreciate it. You can see, looking back through the years, the austerity cuts that were made to the formula, again, primarily all during the Great Recession, and I think they add up to about $1.2 billion. Wanted to talk briefly about tuition and fees. As I mentioned, we've tried to hold the line on tuition. We are near the bottom in tuition and fees average among the SREB states. I think we're 5th from the bottom or something like that. And I think that's, again, a result of our efforts working together to try to keep those numbers down. There does come a time when there is tension between the need for revenue to have two institutions, Georgia Tech and Georgia, in the top 15. It does take investment, and then our other 24 institutions that get ranked highly in the various rankings and have strong programs. So there are always some tension between what we need and what we have, and we try to work with you to balance that and appreciate it. I wanted to just mention faculty salaries. It is a big part of our ability to have quality institutions. Since 2010, this slide indicates that faculty pay in our state is actually, again, adjusted for inflation, declined the most among SREB states by like 10.7%. And for our institutions that compete for faculty hires around the country and in some cases around the world, that can create some challenges and also retaining faculty that many of them do get recruited elsewhere. So I wanted you to see that SREB data. So I've run through those fairly quickly. Mr. Chairman, I know you wanted me to be quick, and Tracy was going to speak to our item or two in the amended, and then happy to take questions whenever you want me to.
Let's let Tracy go through the line items that you want to address in the amended budget, and then we'll open up the floor for questions from members.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tracy.
So the amended 19 budget includes about $13.6 million in new funds for the university system, and I'll highlight a couple this morning. The tracking sheet numbers are included for your reference, so I'm just going to work from the slide. The first item is an increase of $153,000 for maintenance and operation for the Georgia Cyber Center for the current fiscal year. As you know, the Cyber Center spans 322,000 square feet across two buildings. The first building is the Hull McKnight. The second is the Shaffer McCartney building. Both buildings opened, one opened in July, of 2018, and the second actually just opened a couple of weeks ago. Maintenance and operation provides for utilities, custodial, and maintenance for those facilities. The original budget actually included funding for the maintenance and operation of these two buildings, but the 153 is an adjustment to true it up. We had not fully fleshed out which space or what space would be assigned to Augusta University at that time, and now that we understand what space will be assigned to that university, we were able to true up the funding for M&O to support Augusta University.
So if I'm not mistaken, with that true up, there's an increased about 15,000 additional square feet that
Correct.
that has after the true up.
Yes.
All right.
Between the
Thank
two
you.
buildings, yes.
All right. Thank you.
The next item is a 9.9 million add. It's tobacco settlement funds for the Augusta University Health Center. These funds are going to be utilized for equipment renovation and expansion of the pediatric and adult clinical radiation therapy services. Specifically, there are two initiatives. About half of the funding will go towards the creation of an ambulatory care suite for sedated patients. The current facility, which was constructed in the 1970s, does not allow for sedation, which is critical for pediatric patients. This will be about a 8,100 square foot facility. The remaining half of the funds will provide for a new linear accelerator for sedation of pediatric patients. Again, the equipment that exists currently is about 15 years old and is outdated and is sorely needed. So these funds will provide for an additional accelerator.
And I do understand that this renovation will allow us to bring this back into the main facility, and that currently a lot of this, we're having to put people in ambulances or bring people to and from.
Because the
off,
current, yes.
Yes. So I want to make sure the committee understands the need and importance of this.
Okay, and we can provide additional information if you find that helpful.
Thank you.
The next item is the $2.5 million. It's a statewide adjustment for the DOAS insurance premiums. You'll see this across probably all the agencies. It's a true up to meet the needs and to cover the state share of the insurance premiums for fiscal year 19. The next item is an add. It's $326,000. It's one-time funding for the Georgia Public Libraries. This will allow for the purchase of 15,000 ebooks to create a digital children's library. The goal here is obviously to try to assist in the increase in reading levels for our children across the state. Julie Walker, the Associate Director and State Librarian, is here to speak to that item a little bit more. But before I turn it over to Julie, I did want to mention the last two items that are included in the budget for our pass-through agencies, the Georgia Military College as well as the Georgia Public Telecommunications Commission. Two of the three adds are, again, for the DOS premium adjustment, and the Georgia Military College is for the preparatory school and the training and experience. And I think they're here to speak to that a little bit more as well. So I'll turn it over to Julie.
Chairman Martin, you have a question?
Chairman, I had questions relative to these four items. If please, here, do you wish to do those now before? Or I'm happy to wait to the point.
I tell you what, let's wait until the end of the presentation, and then we'll hit them all at once, if that's all right with the committee.
Good morning. I'm Julie Walker, the State Librarian for Georgia, and with the Georgia Public Library Service. We're the state agency that works with all 407 public libraries, at least one in every county. They're organized into 62 library systems, and we work very closely with the leaderships of all those libraries to determine what the needs are of our libraries around the state. One of our strategic initiatives is always to coordinate collaborative purchases to leverage funding for maximum benefit to all the public libraries, and the program that is proposed this year is one of those. We're really pleased that Governor Kemp has recommended funding for a statewide children's digital collection. I think a lot of us have observed small children on all kinds of devices, and our goal with this is for families to be able to check out electronic books for those devices to encourage that early reading that's so important to educational success. This collection would be a mix of fiction and nonfiction ebooks and e-audio book titles that could be downloaded onto electronic devices, including computers, tablets, and smartphones, and titles would be focused on resources from pre-K to about 5th grade level. Traditional books, of course, are still going really strong in our public libraries. Every time I travel around the state, I see parents with big stacks of books still going out, but ebooks would enhance libraries' ability to support young readers and growing their reading skills. While some of our libraries already have some children's ebooks, it's very uneven around the state, just depending on their local funding, and this proposal would allow every single library in every county to participate, offering access to all families in Georgia. Be happy to answer any questions about this program.
No, that's very important. My little one has now got a device. Too many games, not enough books. And I think our last presentation, if I'm not mistaken, would be the other pass-through from Georgia Military College.
Since they're
Okay. Hold on. Well. I tell you what, if you don't mind, real quick, let's conclude sort of the regents, and
Okay.
then we'll start on you. And
Oh, that's
I
great.
apologize for
No, Mr. Chairman, that's
getting
fine.
out of order, but we'll wrap that up. And again, we'll remind everyone we're to go into session at 1, so we'll make sure we're brief with this. Now, questions from the committee. 22, Chairman Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chancellor, thanks for coming today, and I appreciate your comments about student loan debt. I feel like there's a problem out there, and you've obviously recognized it with kids not realizing that if they go into this profession and borrow this much money, the starting salary or the amount even of advancement in their long-term, goal is just don't match up sometimes, and that really needs to be stressed. So I appreciate your comments about that. The second thing that I wanted to ask you about goes to an issue that we all have to deal with, whether you're in business or government, or in this case, the Board of Regents, and that's HR issues, human resources, hiring, firing, discipline. I was in a meeting just yesterday where our speaker was emphasizing, as a legislature, our need to continue to improve our dealing with those issues. I know a lot of employment law is federal issues. I know a lot of what you deal with, particularly with professors, can be tenure issues and other different things than just me employing somebody at my law firm, for example. But number one, do you feel like you have, is there anything that we can do for you as a legislator, as a legislature, under Georgia law to give you any more ability you may need when it comes to hiring, firing, and discipline, as far as people who act inappropriately, whether they be professors or whether they be employees at any level under your control?
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. I appreciate your comments and appreciate that question. We have, as you can imagine, with state law, federal law, and board policy, pretty extensive rules and policies around hiring. We do background checks and processes for dismissing people. We are like every, employer, particularly public employers, we have to adhere to federal employment law, the Constitution. In addition, as you point out, with tenured faculty, there are academic freedom issues sometimes that work with any faculty that come into play. In the end, I think where we are with current law, current policy, we've got the tools that we need. We bump into some issues that are made more complex when we bump into the federal law or the U.S. Constitution, and we seem to have those several times a year. But I think right now we've got the tools that we need to take the action that we need to take when we're legally allowed to do so.
Well, for one, my door is always open to you. Is there anything on the legal front that we could do to help you? Because as you know, when in your very large umbrella of the Board of Regents, somebody in your organization acts inappropriately, we get phone calls about it.
I understand.
And people want us to do something about it. And that puts us in a spot that we need to be able to respond. And of course, thus my question to you. So thank you for that, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chancellor. Again, I think this committee stands ready to help you because I know there's sometimes there's a blurred line between academic freedom and what I think is good decorum. So this committee does stand ready to help you and the Board of Regents in any way. Chairman Jaspers, you.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Let me make sure you got
25. Yeah,
there you
go. And I was going to echo Chairman Fleming's comments about employment law and the seriousness of it, and our reaction to it. That it's very important. I thank you for bringing that up, Chairman. You and I have talked many times about debt, and I just didn't know. As I was relating to a parent recently, do we have a document report that shows debt per graduated student, so a parent could look at it and say, if I go here, this is what the average debt is, but if I go here, I know it gets confounded with people transferring, and we don't stay somewhere for a long time. But I don't know is there a document or report that y'all have created that's clear for parents to know, if I go to this institution, it's going to cost, this is what the average debt is. I think that data's out there, and that parents can look at. Steve.
Yes, you talk about average debt load by one of our institutions?
Yes, sir, at graduation.
We can certainly get that if it's not out there now. The cost of attendance information is out there by institution.
Sure.
But that's a different piece of information, but we can certainly produce that.
Well, I just think parents need to know. And the follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, if I can, is that, I think parents need to know, if I go to this institution, this is what's going on. What is my 2-year graduation rate? Or attainment rates, I think the appropriate word. What's going on? So they can know that if I'm going here, hey, these kids are getting through. If I'm going here, there's an issue. And I think, you and I have talked before, that does shine a bright light on some institutions that are not getting their kids through that second year in an appropriate time. But I would love to see us be able to show that to parents, to show it to taxpayers, that there's some great ones and there's some that you'll need to focus on. If we can find that information, I'd love to see it.
We can provide it to you. The graduation rates, retention rates are all on our website. We can certainly make it more accessible, and each institution also has their own websites. The debt by institution, if that's not already out there, we can certainly make sure that it is. 'Cause I'm with you. I think full disclosure on information parents and prospective students need to have.
And just like, I forget who mentioned it earlier, that if that's in that site where it talks about debt and knowing what out there is good. Just one last question. That $160 textbook, calculus book, is it free to the student? How does the student pay in for that? Or is it involved in the student fee structure? Or how?
You mean
Well, no, it's online, but somebody's paying for it.
The converted textbook?
Yeah, that $160 calculus textbook you brought up.
No, it is free to the student.
Now, how's the author getting paid for that? I mean, somebody has to pay.
What we've done is we've got a program called Affordable Learning Georgia, and through that program we have provided grants to faculty who then take time and they convert whatever textbook, biology, calculus, whatever, to an online format.
Okay.
And then at that point it would be free to the student.
Okay.
How does the professor who wrote the book get paid?
The converted textbook is a new textbook. It's a new format. So it's not a textbook that's produced by a textbook manufacturer who hires an author or several authors to produce that textbook. As I said, we provide a grant to a faculty or several faculty members who themselves convert the textbook, and it's really a new textbook. It's not produced by a manufacturer, so there's nobody to pay in effect for that.
I guess the question is we're not paying a royalty or a fee to an outside vendor.
No,
you're actually creating it from within.
That's right.
and it's a one-time grant, I guess, if you're saying
That's right.
from
That's
the
right.
system.
And we have talked with some textbook producers, manufacturers about different potential partnerships separate from the online program.
What,
Go
Mr. Chairman,
ahead.
how much would a grant be for a calculus? I'm just curious, unfortunately for me, that's the problem you got, but my curiosity just kind of chases some of the stuff.
I love that about you. Love that about you.
I heard that.
I'll have to get you that information.
I'm just curious, what,
Tracy, do you know?
The grants range from maybe $2,000 to $5,000, and it's really to provide release time for that faculty member to be able to spend the time to use open source materials to develop these textbooks that are free to our students.
I would have thought, Mr. Chairman, it'd been much higher than that,
Well,
just because of the time it would take to create a book.
Yeah.
It would-
And for, in some cases, there may be multiple faculty members who work
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Working on one
But
book.
still,
Work on one book.
if
Okay.
$2,000 to $5,000 for an average of a faculty to.
Per faculty member.
Yeah,
But
that
there
is-
might be, as I recall, at University of
Five
Georgia.
faculty members working
Yeah.
on a textbook.
That's
Yeah.
still, to convert it to electronic format and save that much money is a good deal. And I would assume that it's, that savings is year after year after year until there are
Yes.
needed updates in the curriculum.
Yeah.
And one last question, it's a totally different rabbit. How many Move On and Ready students are attending USG at this moment?
What's our fall enrollment? Is it? Yeah.
12,000? And that's like everybody else has seen this gradual increase, or sometimes dramatic. That's 12,000. Okay, thank you.
Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Textbooks was one of the questions I was going to ask earlier. So rather than convert, I would say they would create another curriculum to do that. And that kind of filters itself into sort of math. I would think math, science-oriented things more than history-oriented things that had a lot of text involved in it. But that's essentially what they do, is build a curriculum around it and then put the online curriculum. Okay, thank you for that. The austerity, if I could go back to slide 14, the austerity cuts, and we don't have to get there, but just I was unfortunately here during those times. They were bleak financial times, and those are things that you, as a university system, were able to operate with less money in those fiscal years. If you will, the university system tightened its belt and got it done for the students across those years.
Yes.
I know that was before you were the chancellor, but you were involved in those things. It's not necessarily, we may have foregone some raises, we may have done some things like that, but it is not true that it's not necessarily that we need the $1.2 billion to pour back in there. I mean, we may have foregone some, again, raises, some M&O, but it's not a question that if you pour that back in there, there was a hole left, correct?
Well, I really provided this information for context.
Historical, exactly. Okay, I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure, that's the way I understood it, and I wanted to do
Well,
that.
particularly around the tuition conversation, because in some of those years, tuition went up pretty substantially
Right.
to help cover some of the gap. It didn't cover it entirely. So that's part of the broader discussion around the state investment and the family investment.
Right.
I really provide that for context. But if there's $1.2 billion, you want to.
No, I understand. I understood it. I just wanted to clarify that. If I get also in the faculty salary situation, and I know you provide that again for a contextual thing, I would at some point offline like to understand. I mean, average is average is average. I know we have some professors over there. I'm going to miss. I'll go with full professors, and there's a chair of a department that is probably even more disparate. Some actually may be higher than the average. Some may be far lower. So I'd love to talk about that in a more detailed level at a time. And if I could ask the person who presented the amended items, the DOAS insurance premiums. I understand those are the things that you just get a bill from folks.
Correct.
Can you tell us? And I'm not questioning that because each subcommittee is going to be hearing those things. But I remember from being in here with Chairman Bob Smith years ago, the regents particularly were the people, some other state agencies love to bill. And so we're seeing that across the things. What percentage increase does this miss. This is a true up. DOAS sent you $2.5 million. What was your total outlay for them this year?
I'd have to go back and look
Okay,
at that. But I
we
definitely
can do that offline. I just,
Yeah.
it worries me when another state department just decides to do this. GBA used to do this in the court system all the time. When they ran over their budget, they upped everybody's rent, you know, the next year to do that. And that bothered me because it may be needed. I'd just like to understand it, especially if we see it in other areas, because that's $2.5 million that we get help with salary increases. I'd like to hold DOS accountable. That's not going to be under our purview,
but
Mr. Chairman, but I think it's fair if they're billing the departments and the systems that we're, it's probably better for us to ask that question for you to push back against your
That's a great question.
your fellow
So-
state agencies. So let us help you, you know,
Absolutely.
let us
We'll get
help
some
you
more
with that.
information on that.
Thank you, Mr.
We'll
Chairman.
get some more information from you guys on that. Again, I know y'all are paying it. It's coming out of your budget, so
They're writing checks that they
yeah,
pay
yeah,
cash.
yeah. Just I think I see where you're going. Just to make sure we understand the percentage of increase. That may be something we can go back to the department on. So, Chairman Smyrie.
Mr. Chancellor, I want to take your attention, draw your attention to the degree attainment area. Explain to me to us rather, the remedial education at 15 to 75%. That's something that I've talked to you and other chancellors about in the past. First of all, explain to me the 15 to 75. What brought that about, and then explain to me the new policy of remedial education. In other words, does the president still have the discretionary power? Is there a stricter policy now?
We have a system-wide approach on how we provide remedial education now. And over the last 7 or 8 years, we've sort of experimented and tried different approaches. The approach now it's called co-requisite remediation, because we're in higher ed, we have to have a label like that, I guess. But basically what it means, in the past, students who needed remedial work took a separate class. And the success rates, that's where the 15, 20, 25%. The success rates in those English and math classes were very low, 15, 20, 25%. So the past several years, and it's an effort around the nation. The co-requisite remediation is if the student who needs remedial English or remedial math takes the regular class with every other student, they just get more intense tutoring. If it's math, they spend time in the lab. They're monitored more closely by an advisor. And as a result, we've seen success rates go up significantly from the 15 to 20 to 25 to 70, 75% in English and math. So the change in the model about how we do it has resulted in greater pass rates.
Okay, so the model structurally has helped
Yes, sir.
escalate the pass rates.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm really pleased with that. That's something that, you know, over the years, because we were just allowing students to come in at the remedial courses, and without some kind of application or some sort of oversight, they were just left alone to try to course, so to speak. But to me, having a set policy with some attention to it and resources, and I'm glad to see this now is going from 15 to 75%, because to me that's sort of the diamond in the rough.
That's exactly right.
Person, and I think we need to continue to try to do the diamonds in the rough.
Right. Yes, sir.
One question, are we, and this is probably separate from the university system, but are we seeing the number of students who are coming out of high school, are we seeing more students needing remediation, or are you seeing less, or the same historically?
I don't know. I'd have to check to see if there's been a change. I don't know that off the top of my
I think that would
head.
be interesting to see,
Okay.
because it is placing a burden on our systems to deal with it, even though apparently your methodology is helping deal with the issue. But I would be curious to see
Okay.
historically
We can get that.
what is that remediation population that's coming out of K through 12.
Okay.
All
We
right.
can get that.
24. Chokus, Representative Chokus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chancellor, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
if my memory serves me right, I think the first textbook online was done for the 8th grade Georgia history, if I'm not mistaken, through the Georgia Public Broadcasting.
That was one of the first, yes, sir.
Okay. So y'all have more or less taken on that same role. Are y'all doing it through the university system, or are you doing it through the other avenues?
We're doing it through the university system. GPB did the 8th grade online textbook.
Gotcha. All right. Just as a matter of putting things in perspective, we realize that we're talking about state funding, but we also understand that tuition is involved, and then there's other funding, federal and grants and so forth. As a percentage, could you tell us what, or approximately what our state funding is for the university system, and what our tuition is for the university system, and what other funding is? And I'm looking just for broad numbers here. I'm not just general.
Tracy probably can answer better than I can, but there used to be that the state provided 75% of the costs, and the families were expected to provide 25%. Through the years, that's gotten to be about 50-50. It changes every fiscal year, and it's gone back the other way the last 5 or 6 years because the formula's been fully funded. So I'm not sure where we are now, but Tracy can.
The total budget is $9 billion, and so the state funds is about 25% of that budget.
$9 billion?
$9 billion. Tuition is another 25%. Sponsored is another 25%. Those are the three biggest categories of our budget. If we kind of drew the line and we focused on things that support the classroom experience, we call it education in general. Back to Chancellor's point, tuition and state funds is about a 50-50 share, where if you went back pre-2009, it was closer to a 75-25 split.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'll remind, there are a lot of research grants and things that are included in the federal part too, that is not dealing with their direct classroom experience. Any other questions from committee members? All right. I certainly appreciate, Chancellor, the presentation, and thank you very much, Tracy, for obviously the detail. You make him look good.
I need that, Mr. Chairman.
I know. But anyway, thank y'all. No further questions. We'll move on to the next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And at this point, we'll ask Lieutenant General Caldwell to come back up. You're gonna do for the mic, okay, from the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to come talk about Georgia Military College for a few minutes today. For the new members, I'm a 37-year career military officer. As you heard, retired as a lieutenant general, 3-star general. 5 years ago, upon retirement, assumed the job as president of Georgia Military College. My last 6 years in the United States Army as a lieutenant general, I served as the commanding general for Army Training and Education for the United States of America, and then also did in Afghanistan for 2 years. So familiar in that area from that perspective. If I could, I just want to take 1 second to tell you about Georgia Military College. It's a public independent school, very unique. I believe we're the only one in the state of Georgia. We go from grades 4 through college. The preparatory school is grades 4 through 12. It's part of and located on the school property, the state property in Milledgeville. It's got about 670 students. The preparatory school has had a 100% graduation rate for well over 9 years. And we know that the graduates from that preparatory school, 6 years later, 80% have a college degree. 80% have a college degree 6 years later. So it's an all-mandatory JROTC program. If you want to go to school there, it's a public school. It's not boarding, but you have to be part of the JROTC program. We wear uniforms. We follow all the normal military protocol there. We're probably a magnet school for the fine arts, if anything there, which is kind of almost a oxymoron, but it's a wonderful program. I've got 2 kids in the school, one that's already gone through it. I'm a huge advocate as a parent of what that school does, and just thrilled that we have it in the middle of Georgia like that. As far as the junior college goes, its focus and mission is to produce associate degrees. As I tell our people all the time, our job is to be a feeder school for the regions of Georgia. We're a predominantly lower income minority school. The federal government classifies us as a PBI, a predominantly black institution. Our students, 70% of them are in Pell. So it gives you a rough idea of the kind of student that we're taking and providing educational opportunities for. We're located at 14 different locations around the state of Georgia. We do also offer a 4-year degree, but it's very limited in scope. We only have 150 people in that program. We don't see that growing into something very large, but we've built the Bachelor of Applied Science, the only degree we offer at the 4-year level, in order to find a way for the Technical College System of Georgia graduate who has an AAS degree and desires to now go back and get a 4-year degree to be able to do that in 2 years. So we have all the appropriate arrangements with all the technical college systems to transfer all their credits to us and do that. Conversely, our associate degree holders, of which we produce right at about 1,800 a year, we know that 70% of them will go on to the region schools as we track them beyond Georgia Military College. And so we have developed and have 48, again, agreements with colleges and universities across Georgia so that their credits all do transfer. Therefore, we have to very closely follow what the Regents is doing and ensure that our education, our standards, our requirements mirror whatever the Regents does so that that transfer of credits can occur very smoothly. We do offer free tutoring. Again, we almost have to when you start looking at the type of student that we bring in, predominantly type of student we bring in. There is 20 to 30% that are just could go anywhere they want to go to college. But they elect to go to us just because of the affordability and the location, desiring to stay at home and keeping the small classrooms. But anyway, that gives you just a little, I mean, if I was to give you an example of with the Super Bowl coming up this weekend, down in Albany, some of y'all may know Trent Brown, who plays on the offensive line of the New England Patriots. Anyway, he's the type of young man that came out of our school system here in Georgia in high school and could not go to college because of his grades. He was ineligible to go and play college ball. So he came to Georgia Military College. We put him in our cadet program. We gave him a haircut, put him into formation, made him march, mandatory study hall every night, had him for 2 years in our junior college, and then he would graduate and move on from there, go, unfortunately, not the University of Georgia. We failed there, but he did go to the University of Florida, and then he'll be playing the Super Bowl this weekend. But he'll be the first one, if you were to ask him, how did you get your start in life? He'll tell you it was because of this type of institution that exists out there that is geared and tailored towards those who might fall through the crack but still want the opportunity to get a 4-year degree. We've got an incredible, wonderful technical college system. We do not do certificates, diplomas, work-ready skills. We don't do that at all. That's not, our forte is strictly the liberal arts associate degree to prepare you to move on to a 4-year college and institution. That's our focus. Today I'm going to talk to you about Section 41 under the USG Board of Regents. As you probably know, we only have a formula for our K through 12 preparatory school. So the things I'll be talking to you about are only those which were derived because of the formula-based entity we have there in the preparatory school. On 21.1, you've already heard about DOAS, about $23,000 there. That makes up, our total expense is about $400,000 for the year. But so that makes up a very small amount, as you know. Increase in funds for enrollment growth and experience at the prep school. That was a result of us continuing to grow. There's a huge demand for our preparatory school in the middle of Georgia. We made sure that we tailor it so that it has the right diversity, both in social economic status and in male, female, and in ethnicity, so that our students have that kind of well-rounded experience. That takes scholarship dollars, a lot of fundraising through our foundation. We've been blessed and have had some great success there. But we added 114 more students this year, and therefore also had 5 more teachers. And again, all those computations were done by OPB through our formula. The 21.3 increase of funds to fully fund the prep school, again, it's the QEB formula that drove that additional funding for the school. And then the last one, 21.4, reflected change in program purpose statement. Our Board of Trustees approved in 2017 the addition of now a 3rd grade. So we'll be adding 3rd grade next year, and so that's where the change will come. Instead of just 4th through 12th, we'll now do 3rd through 12th in our preparatory school. Again, even down to 3rd grade, they wear a uniform of sorts. They say Pledge Allegiance to the flag every day. There's certain military type discipline we instill them at that young age. And then, of course, they'll just progress and continue through and stay with us through high school. What's not in this briefing, unfortunately, and I think it's just an oversight that probably occurred, is the governor talked about the school safety, $30,000 for each school. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, but we just weren't in that listing of the schools to get that funding. So I'm not briefing that today. But again, I think it was just an oversight that occurred. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll take whatever questions you all have.
All right, Chairman Fleming.
Thank you, General. I appreciate you being here today, and I appreciate the mission. That's a great story about Trent Brown, a student that probably wouldn't have had a chance to go to college and probably never would have ended up playing in the Super Bowl this Sunday, but for an institution like yours who gives that chance. So that's a great story. I tell it often, particularly this week.
Well, we had them on campus last spring.
Oh, did you?
To come back and see our junior college football
Yeah.
players. You know, and I'm going to get
They're a
just
little pumped, I
wrong,
guess.
380 pounds. I mean,
yeah,
he could consume some food.
You know, I have had to learn about Georgia Military College and all that you do, because you're not under the Regent system. You're not a private school, but you're a public independent school. We, the legislature, created you decades and decades ago, and now we fund you. Mr. Chairman, the general mentioned that, of course, they are a public school, and I'm sure it was just in sometimes they get overlooked, and I know that $30,000 that the governor was going to send to all public schools, I'm sure for school safety, you know, needs to go to y'all. So I'd ask at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, that we try to figure out and correct that if at all possible for them. But and I can follow up with you at that later. I did have one question though about you mentioned your your 3 through 12th grade. You have a funding formula.
Yes, sir, we do.
I know our good friend, Chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, Jack Hill, has for a long time, as I understand it, advocating for y'all to get a formula for the funding of your college. And I'm 100% for that. And I think there were very serious discussions last year about how to work out a formula for y'all. And I would love to see us try to include that this year in our appropriations bill, if at all possible. Can you tell us kind of how that would work? Because I know you had some and tell us who you had the discussions with last year to accomplish that.
Yes, sir. During the summertime, we had a series of ongoing meetings up here in Atlanta with House Appropriations, Senate Appropriations, and OPB and us, working through what a formula might look like. And obviously, the devil's in the details of exactly how much, but I felt like towards the end of July, we probably had all come to a good general agreement that this is about right. And obviously, with the opportunity to be able to present that now to the new administration, would love to see that possibly occur. In the past, we had received GTIG for our students. So obviously that would need to go away too if there was a formula. We'd need to make sure that did not occur anymore, and we would pick up the responsibility over on the other side.
And Mr. Chairman, to the extent that you could, I'd like to chat with you about that later and try to let us get that worked out if at all possible.
I'll be happy to. We're happy to further discuss. Lieutenant General, a couple of questions that, and I want to make sure I'm up to speed. I know you just mentioned that there had been a lot of work previous to this session and the new administration. So, but some of us obviously were not a part of those discussions. So I think from that perspective, that may be something that we can talk further about, because I would like to get caught up to speed with those past discussions, not being a part of them. One of the things I want to make sure I understand is that these line items are for the prep school, not the college.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So everything that is in here is going back to Milledgeville to the prep school.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And I see the addition for the fourth, fifth grade, and new teachers. But I'm curious about 41-21-3, the $133,398. In other words, it's this is the amended budget. What exactly is that for?
Mr. Chairman, that follows the QBE formula. Years ago, there was, about 2007, there was a degradation in fully funding K through 12 schools that occurred. And then over the years, the QBE formula has been bringing that back to the schools when it was taken away from them during that time of austerity here in the state. And so that's just a replenishment that came back by formula to every K through 12 school in the state of Georgia under the QBE model.
Well, and again, I think that goes to a question, and I know in the previous discussion, I think Chairman Martin had mentioned to the Chancellor, an austerity cut. So I'm trying to think, is this funding that is supposedly for an austerity cut? In other words, to make up for past budget cycles when there were we were forced to look at smaller amounts of funding. That's a concern that I have here, because I don't think that we are that we have made we've backfilled austerity cuts. We were looking at from here forward, and especially in light of an amended budget for a preparatory school. I mean, this is not new students, and typically, the true up for the amended budget is for enrollment, reflection of a true enrollment issue as we true up, halfway through the year. So I'm curious that is not necessarily what this is.
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure I'm correct, we do have our CFO with us, Colonel Jim Watkins. I'll let.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm Jim Watkins, and I work at Georgia Military College, and I asked the same question to our representative at OPB. This is not a restoration of the austerity cuts per se. This is a restoration of the QBE cuts that occurred throughout the state of Georgia. They changed and they restored the money for the K through 12 schools throughout the state, but we were under the regents and we did not get it restored at the same time they did. They corrected an oversight, is what she told me.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I may want to look into this further. I'm unaware of that. Yeah, and we got two questions. Chairman Martin.
Just follow up on the chair's comment. And I apologize. I was speaking with the chancellor a bit, and so I missed perhaps the operative portion of the presentation of this. But is this money going back for this school year?
That's for fiscal year 19. That's correct.
Okay, so this is something that, had they not had the oversight, your representation, had they not had the oversight, when we fully funded QBE in the 2019 full budget last year, the other schools around the state received this as a part of that fully funding. You're asking for it at mid-year because it didn't fall with your K through 12, it didn't fall under the K through 12 QBE funding. So it's for this year for these students.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Yeah.
The OPB lady that we deal with, if you want her name, I'll give you her name, but she said that these QBE cuts that were taken in previous years were restored for the K through 12 schools throughout Georgia. We were overlooked, and it was a correction of an oversight.
Representative.
OPB is the one that generates we don't do the formula, they do that
And
for us.
when was this discussion, if you mind?
About the day the governor's budget came out on Thursday, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Representative Lott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to both of you for presenting. This is just for my personal understanding. I am located in the Augusta area, and we do have an excellent military college, Georgia Military College branch. You are really one of the top choices for our Move On When Ready program. Because of your proximity to my county. So a lot of our students go there and have been incredibly successful. But my question to you is, how does this increase in Move On Ready, we are seeing more and more of our students preparing in the middle school so that they know it's coming and they're getting excited about that option. But as this is growing, how does this affect your ability to grow both personnel and an increase in facilities if that's necessary? What's happening with that part of your budget, and what are we doing to you from the high school kids shifting over?
As far as the budget goes, since there's no formula at all for the college, the junior college, there's been no change. Any money we receive, we only receive 5% of our 5.7% about for our entire budget comes out of state funding. The other 96%, 95% we have to generate ourselves. And so there's not a lot of impact per se, but where it has made a difference is we've got about 3,500 dual enrollment students currently attending Georgia Military College. And so that, in fact, is a great plus up. We're up at about 16,400 students right now across the state of Georgia attending one of our campuses, of which about 3,500 of them, maybe 3,800 right now, are dual enrollment students. So it has made a real difference in our overall student enrollment numbers.
So this is my first year on appropriations. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, but I may have some beginner questions here. So in the statement that the state funds are 25% of the region's, region's budget, but for you, we supply you 5.7? I mean, is that the apples to apples, or am I missing something?
No, that'd be about right. Okay. And that 5.7% includes, even our money for operations and sustainment of our state property there in Milledgeville. All our other campuses are leased facilities, okay, public-private partnerships.
Thank you.
And I think you are a unique animal, if you mind me saying that, and that's what I think perhaps Representative Lott and even myself are trying to understand sort of the hybrid position of private, public institution, and then the different roles that you currently serve. Obviously, the preparatory, which is K through 12, or in this case, third, or going forward third through 12, and then also a college program too. So that is one of the things, I would love to speak with you more. A couple of questions to make sure that I'm understanding some of the way in which you operate. I know that I'll make sure that we're also obviously your state funding, making sure that we're working together with our university system, our technical college system, as far as coordinating programs, making sure that they're interchangeable, if you will, or the transfer on. So I look forward to speaking with you a little bit farther and making sure that we completely understand all of that in what you do in your unique position.
But you are right, Mr. Chairman. It is key, and that's why these agreements we have with the individual technical colleges across the state. We've got 19 already done. Is so important to ensure their students can transfer into our Bachelor of Applied Science program. And conversely, the other 48 agreements we have to help our students move into regents, and if they prefer private colleges in the state of Georgia, exist too. So that transferability is good, because our student really is that one right in the middle. Doesn't want to go get a work-ready skill, not really a hands-on type person, but is unable to get into a regent school right away. Just did not do well enough in high school. Perhaps waited too late to start applying themselves. So they come to us, and we'll work hard with them for 2 years, if necessary 3 years. A lot of the co-requisite instruction, like the Chancellor was talking about, we're doing too now. We've moved more into that realm ourselves, and we're able to help prepare them and move them on to 4-year regents or private college in Georgia, and give them that opportunity to truly change their lives. And again, when you look at the number of Pell students we have, it tells you the kind of student we're providing that opportunity to here in the state.
Thank you. Any other questions? Presentation. All right. Appreciate it,
Thank you,
Lieutenant
Mr.
General. We
Chairman.
appreciate you coming and addressing the committee. And our last presenter, Interim President Kaylee Noble, if you'll come up with the Georgia Student Finance Commission. And do we have all, we've got a computer, so
Yes, sir.
let me make sure that, video system, there we go. If we'll give it a second to warm up. Let's see here. System.
It's coming up, yes. There should have been one at each.
Fortunately, I think we need a degree from Georgia Tech to run this.
One moment. Here, let me go
all right.
this real quick.
All right.
Should work, and then you're good. Everyone does have a copy.
All right, we'll go ahead and start the presentation. I know we have a paper copy in front of all the members, and then as the presentation warms up on the projector, you can switch from there. Go ahead.
Good. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to go over our amended 19 budget, but also prepared just a brief agency overview and kind of update for you, especially for those members that are new or not familiar with our agency. So we're celebrating, we've been around a little over 50 years. We started back in 1965 as a state scholarship organization, and we really are the state's singular higher education finance entity. Today we administer just about 20 state-funded and lottery-funded scholarship, grant, and student loan programs. Today you may hear me talk about Georgia Student Finance Commission, and there may be occasion that we use the term Georgia Student Finance Authority. We also have a corporation, but by and large, we go by the name Georgia Student Finance Commission, and that's the umbrella organization for our entity. We use the authority as our student loan making arm for legalities. Our singular mission is just to promote and increase access to education for Georgia students and their families, and really to connect our students and families with all the ways that we believe an affordable post-secondary credential is available in Georgia. In FY18, this pie chart just kind of summarizes how we used our funds. We had about $817 million in direct awards to students across the state. You can see the big blue pie section is our HOPE program, certainly the largest piece of the puzzle, but certainly dual enrollment, our student access loan, TEG, and some of our other smaller programs comprise a significant portion. As we're gearing up for Super Bowl week, just to put in perspective, that $817 million went to enough students to fill every single seat in Mercedes-Benz Stadium 3 times in a single year, 230,000 students. So we're pretty proud of that. Some of the things that we do, in addition to program administration, we do administer this year, FY19, just about $1 billion, and we're very proud to do that.
with due diligence, and we work collaboratively with our 83 public, private, and independent colleges around the state. But we also provide a lot of outreach and education services. FAFSA completion is something high on our list of priorities, and I could spend a whole hearing with you or other time talking about that. But the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it really serves as a gateway to student access and financial aid for all students. There are so many studies that show the correlation between filling out that form and the likelihood or propensity for a student to get into college. Georgia's completion rate for its high school seniors last year was about 62%. The students that did not fill out that application left $80 million in federal financial aid unclaimed because they didn't fill it out. And so for us, part of the overall higher education financing conversation for us is focused on making more students fill out that application and availing themselves of the free money that's already available before we work on other resources in the state. So, as I said, would love to entertain further conversations about that and what we're doing around the state to help. GAFutures.org is our website that provides all the information and applications for our state programs and connects students with all the resources available. We have outreach staff stationed around the state, and I'll show you a map in a moment, but they did nearly 3,000 visits to high schools, churches, community organizations last year, helping students and families learn about all of these programs. Path to College 529 plan is the state's 529 plan. We administer the marketing piece of that in conjunction with the Office of the State Treasurer. That program currently sits at $2.6 billion in assets under management that families are saving for higher education expenses. And then we do a lot of work in financial literacy, and some of your comments regarding student loan debt ring true here on our website and in person. We try to connect students with the resources so that they know going in as they're planning in high school kind of the return on their investment. Or if I'm going to get a teaching degree from this college, this is what it'll cost me and what I can expect to earn when I graduate. And so we work very hard there. Bottom line is we really just want to make sure students know about these programs, and we constantly look for new ways to reach them. Just a couple examples, quick photos of what our outreach efforts look like. It can be one-on-one with students or families in a coffee shop or in a large auditorium. They're stationed around the state. I'll show you a map on the next slide. You can see we've got folks in every geographic area. We would welcome the opportunity to host an event with you in your district, and have done so with many of you in the past, and so we're always available. Likewise, hopefully you all each got one of our biggest pieces of publication that has a lot of information in it, our College Connector. This is also available online, but should any of you ever have a desire to have more of these, we would love to deliver you an entire box or whatever the case may be. A couple of our current agency initiatives. Just in December and January, we launched the state's first single entity focused streamlined college GPA calculation service. In the FY18 budget, we were funded to develop this system. Previously, all of the colleges would calculate HOPE GPAs independently based on a single set of rules. But the HOPE GPA is different than a normal college GPA. Some colleges use pluses or minuses and different sets of grading scales, but for HOPE, it's all standardized. But everyone was doing it independently. And through some changes that required some new nuances in that calculation, it just made sense that we do it singularly. So over the past 2 years, we've worked with all 83 post-secondary institutions and have just launched that. In fact, I think Georgia Military College was the first one to successfully send some GPAs through in late November. In the last 2 months, we've calculated nearly 300,000 student GPAs successfully so far. And so that's a great success, not only for us, but for all the partners statewide. Financial aid awareness and FAFSA, we're launching some new initiatives as early as February, focusing on really a digital media pilot, hoping to make students more aware of the need to fill out the FAFSA and encouraging them to let us help them get that done. And then as well as some improved website technology, including online chat technology with our students and families. Our outreach efforts will continue this year. We've launched a calendar on our website where students and families can actually go in and search by any number of different variables to see where we're going to be and when we're going to be in their area. And then we'll continue to host events throughout the year, Financial Aid Awareness Month, College Savings Month, and other things like that. Just briefly, if time permits, I wanted to highlight one program for you, and that's the HOPE Career Grant. Oftentimes we hear about the Tennessee Promise or free college programs around the country, and I just wanted to reiterate, make no mistake that Georgia offers that same thing here. We're just being a little bit more strategic in what we'll pay for. Most of the programs are offered through the Technical College System of Georgia institutions, but Georgia has identified 17 strategic industry areas that we know are in high demand and have more jobs than we have available to fill. And so the state is saying that if you would like to pursue a certificate or diploma in one of those programs, it's going to be covered for you at 100% of your tuition. And so it's a flat award amount based on the number of hours a student is enrolled. And you can see we've added programs almost every year, the most recent being aviation that came online for FY19. There's a couple of charts on the next few slides that show the growth of that program and the number of students enrolled. Most of these students, you can see there's a tiny little bar of students enrolled at the University System of Georgia, but by and large, upwards of 95% or more are enrolled in technical college system institutions. You can see year to date in FY19, we've already surpassed the number of students that participated in all of FY18, and so that program is very successful. We already spent $9.5 million this year. And if you look at the total value on slide 13 of this value of this free tuition we're providing as a state, the HOPE grant or Zell Miller grant combined with the HOPE Career Grant, it's valued at over $28 million in FY18, and we believe that's significant, and we're proud of that program. And then just for your information or interest, kind of the breakdown of where those students are taking those, what industry areas students are enrolling in that program. If there's no questions there, I'll move into the amended FY19 budget recommendations, and just want to thank Governor Kemp and his administration and our team at OPB for helping us put together what we believe is a pretty positive budget recommendation. It starts in section 44 of your tracking sheet, and I'm just going to run through. It follows on our slides as well. The first is a statewide change, similar to all the agencies, a truing up of our DOAS self-insurance programs for $3,300. Item 44.1.2 is an addition of $1.3 million into our administration program, and just for education purposes, in all of our programs, the only program in our agency where there are operating or personnel expenses is in the singular administration program. So everything under the HOPE program budget or the dual enrollment program budget is 100% pass-through for awards. So this is the only line item in our budget related to actual operating expenses. But it's $1.3 million for the employer share of state health and retirement benefits related to a staffing policy change. As I mentioned, we're an authority in addition to the commission. Years ago, we were a federal student loan lender and a federal student loan guarantor, similar to the Sallie Mae's or Bank of America or Nelnet. We did the same type of thing. In 2010, the federal administration ended that program, and now all federal student loans are lent directly from the government to a student, administered by the colleges themselves. So there's no intermediary bank, so to speak. When that program ended, our income, obviously, from that program ended. Prior to that, that income was what we used to operate and subsidize the cost of all of our other state programs besides HOPE. So for TEG, dual enrollment, all the other service cancelable loans, the administration of that was funded by this other line of business. Since that has gone, those employees have shifted from being non-state employees under the authority to now 100% focused on their work as state employees. And so this reflects transitioning them to the employment of the commission. We did go through several layoffs over the years, the first being, I believe, in 2009 or 2010, when that first came down from the federal level and reduced a significant chunk of our staff. And then throughout the past few years, as we ended the servicing of some of those leftover loans, we've again reduced staff size, and so now 100% of our staff is only working on state or lottery-funded programs. 44.1.3 is an enhancement of $605,000 for IT systems and customer service. Most of this will go to really behind-the-scenes security infrastructure, advanced encryption for some of our Oracle databases, third-party monitoring of our websites, and some additional security. We obviously, with the number of students that participate in our programs and the application data, there's so much information in our databases that this is an extra level of security that'll really step it up a notch. We went through a GTA maturity assessment, so to speak, which is kind of a compliance review or how we're performing from a security standpoint a number of years ago. Part of these funds will be used to do that again with another third party to see how we're performing against best practice. And then there's 44.1.4 is to reflect a program name change from HOPE administration to Commission administration, which again reflects the fact that our agency is now funded for administration of all the programs at some level as opposed to just HOPE.
For our
you.
programs that are, again, 100% of the money in these programs is passed through for student awards. But in dual enrollment, you'll see $3.5 million to meet projected need in the amended budget. FY18 ended, and we saw about a 26% growth in dual enrollment expenditures over FY17, and I'm sure we'll get into conversations about what that growth looks like again. We're expecting double-digit growth in FY19 as well. Hope Private, $2.7 million to meet the projected need. There's about 5% growth projected in the Hope Private Awards, and then $168,000 to meet the projected need in the Zell Miller portion of the Hope Private Scholarships, which is growing at about 12% this year. All told, $2.9 million in lottery funds and $5.5 million in state funds, a total overall budget change of $8.4 million, $994 million total for the agency for FY19, which includes NPAC, the Non-Public Post-Secondary Education Commission, which is attached to us, but there were no changes in their budget. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. One question regarding, obviously, seems like you're going to be the repository for information on all students and the colleges, but certainly as we get into the dual enrollment issue, you're going to have more data regarding that.
We were able to put some slides together yesterday. We can, if you have time and want to get into that, I can show you some slides today.
I don't
but
know
we can
if we
hold
want
it.
to do it today. We may
Okay,
want to do
but
it later.
certainly we can tell you.
That is, you're going to have more of that data regarding dual enrollment.
Sure.
All right. We do have a few questions. Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same question that I asked earlier, the DOAS percentage increase, and I'd just like to know how they're allocated. If it's a self-insurance issue, is how they're allocating that money to you. Again, let us help you in that if we can. We can take that offline. Tell me about the 44.1.2, the employer share of state health and retirement benefits due to staffing policy update. What does that mean?
So
more policy, more more staff, more change in policy.
For many, many years, most of our staff were hired under the Georgia Student Finance Authority, which for legal purposes is the entity that loans money, since the commission cannot do that legally. And that was really the business model back when we were a federal student loan lender and guarantor. Since we are no longer a federal student loan lender or guarantor, and we're not working on any lines of business other than 100% state and lottery funds, except for a small $50,000 federal grant for public defenders. We worked with OPB last year. We really got into a crunch. So we were basically operating as a small business with less than 100 employees on this plan and had to procure an independent health plan and retirement plan every year for these employees, which just became untenable. We had been faced with double-digit health insurance increases for a couple years in a row, and we're facing it again. We worked with them, and that plan year started on July 1 every year. So really late spring last year, we worked with OPB, and then it just made sense. These employees are only working on state projects, our state programs, and so we shifted them to be employees of the commission, and with that comes some increased costs that weren't previously part of this program. This actually only represents a portion of the cost. Our agency under the authority and its operation is still able to cover a portion of it. But this reflects that shift.
And Mr. Chairman, I know we're trying to get there at one. I'm going to want to talk about this a good deal more, but because what this looks like to me is you've moved people, over, and you're getting allocated an overhead percentage from the state benefits plan. Did they go on the state benefits plan July 1st?
Yes.
Okay, so it says here, health and retirement. So is this amount the percentage to put people in a state employment plan? For instance, if you were in TRS now, it's like 22% of your salary goes into TRS. Is this, when you say retirement, is this to put these people in ERS? Okay, and then the question becomes, are we putting them at ERS year one, or are we putting them at ERS years that they've been there before?
No, all these employees started on July 1 as brand new state employees.
Okay. All right, so then begs the question, how come a larger health benefit system is costing you more money than the one you were procuring on your own?
We can put together some information for you. I can't answer necessarily the cost.
Well,
really.
and again, I don't hold you responsible on this, but do you see, riddle me this.
Yeah.
If you're telling me it's an expensive process to go out and buy small business insurance, and yet we put you under the state plan and it costs more, makes me
Well, I'm not sure. I think that may be the missing piece of information that we don't have was what would it have cost otherwise. I think you're saying that even though we're seeing an increased line item here that includes that health benefit, maybe what, Chairman, and I'd like to see this too, because I know we had previously talked about getting into this, making sure that I fully understood the transfer of these employees from the authority into the commission. But we're probably not seeing, if I had to guess, what the cost was otherwise. In other words, the higher cost if
Correct.
you had left them.
So is there a reduction in another budget?
Yes, but the authority side of it was really operating at a loss.
Who was paying for that?
The authority essentially operates as has self-generating revenue from the student loans that we administer. So on all student loans, the interest that we recoup from that is what funds that operation.
Okay.
And because of the change in business model, really that interest income was such at a level that it couldn't keep up anymore. We have never received funding, or at least in my recollection, for administration of the tuition equalization grant or our military programs or anything of that, even though those staff were performing those duties for the state. So this shifts the cost really from the authority to the commission.
And I think I've got some of the, and Chairman, if I
That makes
will,
sense.
I think I've got some of the same questions, but I think from a point of detail that I've asked Brother to come in and maybe share a little bit more of the history, so that and that may be what we as our finance minds.
It would be a great opportunity for me to see what was budgeted and what it was costing it for. Because I'm looking at here at this being an increase over what you were spending for. You're telling me that's not the picture now, but this is a great opportunity to look at what it was costing you, because it was costing you something, and what it is costing you now.
Certainly.
To make that comparison.
Certainly.
That's good.
And I know that we have all that put together. We can certainly bring it to you. I will say probably a large portion of it is the retirement plan, which is a greater expense than it was. But we'll certainly get on your calendar and put
And
together
certainly
some.
I think that would be great, because I've got the same question, if you will.
And just real quickly, on the software update, do you have a vendor identified for that, or you're in the scoping process and somebody has helped you get to $605,000?
It's a host of different projects. I don't
Right.
think there's a singular vendor. Our databases are Oracle-based, so
Sure.
some of that encryption will come through them. But it also includes things like virtualizing our desktops, two-factor authentication, which means not only a password but also an ID swipe. And so I don't know that we have all the vendors picked out.
Okay, and I'm going back to this back years ago when GTA sold us on the refresh with IBM and the other vendors that were chosen, AT&T and I believe in IBM, that we were doing the automatic refresh. Your organization wasn't part of that?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And Chairman Jaspers. Let me make sure. Hold on. 25, is that correct?
Just two things. You didn't acknowledge this fine gentleman you have over there by the podium, Chris Green. Committee members, especially if you're new, this guy is an invaluable resource to you in your communities when it comes to student finance. Absolutely just a great employee. I just wanted to brag on Chris.
I'm remiss for not doing it
He's just been a great just a great guy.
I am too, Chris. I apologize.
He is first rate. Just my question, this is a beautiful publication I saw last year. What or how much money it's the same for TCSG, asked them the same questions. Penetrating the millennial, the young kids, what are y'all doing to make sure, besides passing us out this beautiful thing and putting it in college, high schools, digitally in the Instagram, all the different platforms? Are y'all into that, making sure that they get this?
Some. We actually market tested this with group of college freshmen that had just gone through the process, and they said, please don't put it online, please print it. We're sent to the web so much, we get lost. It's like a rabbit hole that we go to look for one thing and we end up looking for something else. And I, can attest to that from my own experiences. So it is available in print, and we try to do that. We'd like to work with high school counselors a lot and get these in their hands and encourage them to use it as part of their high school curriculum in the classroom when they can. We feel like there's a lot of good material to teach from, especially financial literacy and college planning. But as I mentioned, one of the things we're launching in February is kind of a pilot program on digital media where we'll have some web ads, some online videos, and YouTube and Instagram, and I don't even know all the technologies that students are using these days, but really to capture them and then direct them back to our website and to our resources. And so we're excited about tracking that and seeing if it's successful, but we're really trying to get to where they are.
And targeting parents, because I think their parent sees this, it's just a great thing to hand to them. It's very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm like you. We start to get on the internet, we get distracted and forget our original purpose of
right.
what we're trying to find.
They start watching videos.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? I want to thank you for presenting. I know there are a few questions that obviously we'll try to circle back up next week and make sure we understand completely with this transition. But I really appreciate it, and I think as I'm beginning to understand more and more of the detail, again, the commission being a repository for a lot of information that's really looking at all of our college systems, and where the students are tracking, certainly the financial, the cost, but also as we get into more and more information, which I would like to see would be the dual enrollment information. So I'd like to, if you would, follow up next week and see what kind of information.
Thank you, and thank you for recognizing that in us. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and appreciate all the work that y'all have done.
Thank you.
So, if there's no further questions from the committee, I don't think we've had anyone else on our agenda today. I want to thank you for your attendance and participation today. Great questions. And I think that's made our first meeting of our Higher Education Appropriations Committee a success. And thank you for your participation on this wintry day. And with that, we are adjourned. Real quick, I'm sorry. Without Patrick, I'd be lost. But tomorrow's meeting,
2 p.m. and 4:06 CLOB.
2 p.m., 4:06 LOB.
And that'll be TCSG.
Yep. And we'll hear from the technical college system tomorrow.